Hello everyone, Tim from G1 Toys here to bring you an exclusive look at Star Wars The Last Jedi. This is going to be the first time I review a movie on my channel, so I hope you really enjoy it. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and show you some items I picked up from the theater, starting with this popcorn bin. This is the Executioner Stormtrooper, along with Kylo Ren, the Captain Phasma, and Praetorian Guard, that is. They do have another one with Rey and Finn and one more person on there. I can't quite remember who it was, but I didn't put any popcorn in it so as not to ruin it because I am a collector. So next item of interest I wanted to show you was the Last Jedi cup from the Star Wars movie. Love that picture right there. It looks really nice. This is kind of just a simple cup, but it's really cool to have now in my collection of Star Wars memorabilia. I do have Luke and Rey here also from the Black Series, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, this is a first for me. It's really going to be a monumental time today, being that I get to review a movie for you that I was just had the most anticipation for to see. So this is an exclusive look at the Last Jedi event, and as important as this event is, it's really necessary to do this for me. So today we're going to be doing a spoiler review and a spoiler-free review of the film, and I'll start with the spoiler-free review for those of you that haven't seen it yet. So let's jump right into my first impressions of the film. And as you all know, Star Wars has been a part of my life since 1977. And although I can't say I remember much from then, once I was old enough to realize what I was watching, Star Wars was really the staple of my cinema and home experiences. So how did The Last Jedi stack up to the extremely nostalgic competition? Well, in fact, it didn't. I could see how new fans of this series would be drawn to this like moths to the flame, because it had all the big effects and general sci-fi themes needed to entertain. So when I sat down in the theater with a close friend and observed this space drama spectacle, I was entertained, but as I thought about it afterwards, I wasn't necessarily impressed. And I'll tell you why in my spoiler section. But I'll be honest, I did like it more than The Force Awakens, but only by a little. I'll tell you, the character design is really where The Last Jedi shines. It's almost a continuation of the Abrams vision, but Johnson's take is definitely more defined. It's a beautifully choreographed world with maturely designed creatures, and the main cast looks flawless. I love the new Praetorian Guards and how they played a larger role than past Imperial Guards, which were my favorite to gaze upon back then from the old films. Overall, just a really gorgeous movie. And aside from a visual spectacle, I saw some moments of greatness in acting, and honestly, I can say Mark Hamill, he nailed his part, along with Andy Serkis as Snoke. Fantastic. We really get to see an overall change in the tone of this film because all the main personalities we saw from Force Awakens have been accentuated upon and improved upon as well. Another performance noteworthy of mention was Adam Driver. Wow. Adam Driver did an amazing job as Kylo Ren. He behaved more like a student scorned instead of a whiny apprentice in the prior film. He still wasn't a defined character, but he was at least someone who had a purpose for his anger this time. The first attempt at humor was nothing short of cringy, unintelligent garbage and took place in a pivotal moment. So I was actually kind of upset by that and prayed the film would make up for it. Fortunately, it did, and there were some jokes that did land. But I'll be honest, I don't necessarily want to see a ton of humor in a space opera. That's not what makes these films great. The only humor I can tip my hat to in Star Wars is a personality-driven Han Solo type of role, where, with the help of his Wookiee, perhaps. Which, you know, they ignite sparks of laughter every time I see that. And occasionally C-3PO with his personality traits. They were annoying enough to be chuckled at, but it really came back to the reactions of others to him that sold it for me. Let's just be honest, unless you have the seasoned actors to pull off a perfectly timed joke, you need to leave it in the cut scripts. For my final thoughts, it wasn't really a bad movie. It was actually quite entertaining, and although it didn't contain the profound changes I expected to see, that I'll talk about in my spoiler review, it was a solid 7 out of 10 on this one. Now, before you watch any more, I must warn you, this section will be filled with spoilers galore. So, avert your eyes now if you still want to remain clueless in regards to any details about this film. And now that I consider all of you forewarned, we can start the descent into unknown territory. Now, Star Wars has been notorious for bringing us secrets and huge plot changes. And although The Last Jedi throws some twists, they're not exactly monumental. So I'll discuss the areas that stood out and as unique, and I'll be honest when I say I really wanted to see the gray Jedis be introduced in this movie, and I thought Luke would be the one to introduce that very nicely. But you know, if it had, it would have taken a completely different course, and I imagine Disney really wanted to play it safe with this franchise. So the first item I want to mention is that BB-8 has a much larger role in the film. So glad to see this little droid in this new film. I really appreciate the fact that they focused on him quite a bit in this one and gave him quite a larger role than before. BB-9E, however, could have used some more screen time. I felt he was treated with less care than Phasma was in The Force Awakens, and that has sad written all over it. The opening scenes were a nice touch as Poe and a handful of Resistance troopers were battling the First Order in space. I thought it was a smart move to make Rose's sister the war hero in these scenes because it really sets the character up nicely and allows you to feel some sympathy for Rose's plight after her sister drops a slew of bombs in space. Yep, you heard me right. A slew of bombs in space. You know, not even the bombs you drop in the bathroom would reach their target in space. Anyway, on a serious note, our beloved First Order traitor is back from his duel with Kylo Ren, which looked like it should have neutered him, but instead, I guess he was cooking for a while in a medical pod, and to my astoundment, he's back at it like a jackrabbit, and he's making friends with Rose and setting off on his mission to Canto Bight to track down a codebreaker. Next, there's a lot more of Leia in this film, so the fan service was answered quite nicely. The standout moment I can think of was when Kylo Ren and his fleet target the hull, and just like in the previews, he feels conflicted about taking the shot. They share a moment of tears, and Kylo refrains from blowing his mother to bits. However, his crew isn't as sentimental as they obliterate the hull, and she's sucked into the dark reaches of space. I'm sorry, this part's hard for me, guys. It's the part where Admiral Akbar gets sucked out into the deep, dark reaches of space. It's as if a part of me was ripped out when that happened. Rest in peace, fish. Okay, on to Leia. This is a side of the Force that we haven't seen yet that happens next in the next little scene here. As Leia is drifting through space, impending imminent death, she channels her inner chi and creates what could be described as a force bubble to protect herself. And just like Carrie Poppins, y'all, she propels herself to an adjacent ship. It's, you know, with all this going on, it's just too bad we'll never see her wield a lightsaber. So quickly, I'm going to discuss the scene that ends with The Force Awakens, where Rey brings the lightsaber to Luke and hands it to him and says, "Here, look what I found." At least that's what it looks like she was saying with her eyes. But so what happens is Luke wants no part of Rey. He takes a look at that lightsaber and just tosses it behind him into the cliffs below, which I was thinking, wait, there should be some questions going on here. He didn't ask, "What's your name? Where did you get this ancient relic? Where did you come from?" Nothing. Just see ya. So I thought that was kind of lame. You know, if that's comedy, my name is Jar Jar Binks. Just saying. Another noteworthy point worth mentioning was how Kylo and Rey portrayed themselves as connected through the Force. They actually, in essence, FaceTimed each other using this ability. But after you think a new Force power is at play, Snoke divulges that he is the one behind their mind meld. I think I just used a Star Trek term. Anyway, back to Luke. He reluctantly decides to take on Rey as a student after a well-placed trip down memory lane on the Millennium Falcon by R2, when he played him the message from the New Hope movie and, you know, ignited his sentiments and emotions from back then. Basically, Luke goes to Rey and he tells her there's 3 lessons that he's going to give her why the Jedi should end. Of course, Rey is naturally rebellious, as all young Jedis are, and wants to face Kylo Ren in hopes to turn him from the dark side. So she proceeds to pod herself over to his ship. Now that's going in style. If she wanted to meet with him so bad, she could have really FaceTimed him again and just had a luxury cruiser sent. I mean, how did she not know he would take her straight to Snoke? which by the way is some of the best sequences in the film. But before we discuss that, back to Luke, who is now devastated that his pupil has left to face the enemy alone. He gets it into his head that it's best to burn down the tree with the ancient Jedi texts to prevent further threats to his religion. And can anyone guess who showed up to this fireside? Anyone at all? That's right, none other than Force Ghost Yoda in The Last Jedi, folks. Really cool to see Yoda in another Star Wars film. However, he did resemble the alien from Mac and Me, and I have more than one confirmation on that. So watch for yourself. I think you'll see what I mean. But anyway, once we see Yoda come into play, he does call forth a lightning bolt that comes down and takes out the tree for Luke that he was going to burn down, and proceeds to tell Luke that there was nothing inside that the girl Rey does not already possess. Which kind of makes me wonder, why did they keep it around for so long if it didn't really matter? So, you know, logic aside, I guess, it was really nice to see the wrinkly Muppet Man again. That was a treat. All the while, Rose and Finn have a run-in with the locals at Canto Bight for parking their ship on the beach. Sounds a little romantic to me. While in prison for the offense, they meet the new character DJ, who happens to also be a master codebreaker. I liked the use of Benicio del Toro for this role, but it seemed a little out of place when they completely disregarded Maz Kanata's advice to seek out a specific person. I guess her size takes away her intimidation? Anyway, DJ does what any perfect stranger would do and throws Rose and Finn under the bantha. That's figurative for bus. Which at this point, Captain Phasma makes her 5-minute customary appearance, and she has no quarter as she quickly orders the execution of Rose and Finn. And after a daring suicide bombing from Vice Admiral Holdo, Rose and Finn make their standoff and escape with Captain Phasma. So it's far from epic. It isn't amazing. It's okay. It gets your blood pumping a bit, but it's not epic by any means. It doesn't last very long. And at the end, when Finn smacks Phasma in the face, you get to see her eye for just a second, and then she falls into this fiery chasm. So you never hear her body thud. I wonder what this means for her fans, if we get to see her for a full 6 minutes in Episode 9. The anticipation is stifling. Okay, on to the bittersweet part of the film. Bitter because we barely knew Snoke, and we still barely know Snoke. Sweet because it's the best sequences of battles I've seen since Empire, that is lightsaber battles. So really cool, really enjoyed this sequence a lot in the movie. At this point in the film, Kylo Ren will betray and murder Snoke while appearing to be following his instructions to dispatch of Rey. You are led to believe Kylo has had a change of heart, but actually he is trying to selfishly join forces with Rey. However, after he slices his master in two, the Praetorian guards attack and bring forth a brutal battle. I was loving every moment of this scene. It was invigorating, to say the least. But did I want a backstory on Snoke? Well, I think that all the fans of Star Wars definitely deserved it, since there were multiple theories out there on where he came from, and it wasn't even touched upon in this movie. I think we should have a Star Wars hotline for moments like this. Hello? Why did that part suck so bad? And for the final sequence, the Resistance is trapped on the refugee planet. You know, the one with the red dirt. And another awesome scene takes place. It seems like Disney is looking for ways to kill off every original cast member, but at least here we have a death with purpose, as opposed to Han's quick passing. So Luke arrives to speak with Leia and proceeds to face the First Order threat alone. At this point, Kylo Ren spots Luke on the plains and orders for every gun there to fire on him. At first you might think after a barrage of laser fire that Luke would blend in quite nicely with the sand, but he walks out of the smoke and he's unscathed, as if he turned on God mode in a video game, and he just brushes it off. We then see Luke face Kylo Ren, and a series of taunts take place, ending in a lightsaber duel. But not for long, because like Obi-Wan, Luke uses the strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine sentiment, and which this enrages Kylo Ren at that point. With a fail swoop, he literally misses the target completely and slices right through the midsection of Luke. At this point, I was thinking to myself, what in Star Wars lore is going on? But it turns out Luke was utilizing a new force power unseen until now to project himself to the enemy so that Leia and the Resistance could escape. What a good brother. Rey and Chewbacca end up showing up and desperately tried to escape the First Order and end up escaping through a cave behind the bunker they were laid up in. And Rey, uses the Force to move all these rocks out of the way so that the rest of the people can escape into the Millennium Falcon. Pretty cool ending sequence. Now it's time to wrap up our spoiler review of The Last Jedi. I'm not quite sure what to make of the children in the ending sequence, whether or not they are future Resistance members or aspiring Jedi apprentices. I guess we'll have to wait for episode 9, which I'm sure to review when the time comes. But until then, may the Force never leave you in times of trial or in times of triumph.